So the wipe is here in Escape from Tarkov with patch 12.11, and with it, it brought a change to the flea market requiring you to be level 20 to access it now as opposed to level 10, which is what it was before. Now, is this an absolutely terrible change to the game, or is it the best thing that's ever happened? To be honest, you've probably already made up your mind about that, but if you want to bear with me, I want to talk about how it's kind of felt so far through my playing of Escape from Tarkov and how my opinion on it has kind of been shifting over the past few days. I'm Jessekazam. Welcome back to another Escape from Tarkov video. If you like this video, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. So the TLDR of this video is that I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I don't want that to be a non-answer, but just to get that right out of the way, and this video is not me defending that decision to move it up to 20, and it's also not me hating the idea of it either. This video is me basically providing a few reasons why I think we should wait to push out too much judgment on the decision, a few general thoughts as I've played about 24 hours of the wipe so far, and then a few tips for people who are really struggling with this decision. So first and foremost, it's important to remember that it's done, that the change has happened, and that we have to try our best to move forward. Now, I always try to strike that fine line. Criticism of BSG and the changes that they make is a good thing. If you've ever listened to the podcast I do with Veritas, you know that we are very willing to criticize the game and their decisions. But, also on the flip side, we don't want to just decide that a feature is terrible or amazing without playing it, without letting it play out. And we do have to understand that that's kind of what we are. We are beta testers. They are allowed to tinker with whatever they want, and then we test it out. So I try my best to kind of strike that line right down the middle, but we have to remember that this change is done. This is how it's going to be. So we got to try to move forward and see how it plays out. The other thing that I thought when this change first came out, even when I didn't know how I felt about it, like those first few minutes of the wipe when we all saw that it was level 20 and we were all figuring out how we felt about that, the one thing I kept thinking of was at least this is them attempting to respond to community feedback. Now, whether you love or hate the game, we have to understand that people that are frustrated are always going to be the ones that are providing the most feedback. When something is really good or when something is really balanced, people often don't communicate that very well to the devs. Now, I think that they have tools and stuff on the back end to be able to see those things, but what I'm trying to get at is that there is a significant portion of the community, including myself at times, that has expressed a desire to stretch out the early game. The crappy ammo, crappy guns, no mods, running around looking for things, the stress of having a quest item on you or finding, a Gen 4. That's a lot of what a lot of people think is the essence of Tarkov. That stress, that fear, that excitement, the low lows that make the highs feel even higher. So whether you like this or not, whether you don't play enough to get to level 20 or not, a good thing to remember and to understand is the fact that this at least feels like a response to community feedback of wanting to stretch out the early game, and that this is a test. They've changed this all the time. We know we are going to have multiple more wipes before, Escape from Tarkov comes out. So if this is a bad thing, if they decide it's too much, they might dial it back even during this wipe or for the next wipe. But it seems like they're at least attempting to acknowledge some community feedback and test out a way that would push out that early game. And then the other thing to remember is I see a lot of people coming in and saying that this, rip casuals, we've talked about this before, rip casuals, it only hurts casual players. I would love to hear if anybody legitimately throw down in the comments if anybody has an answer to this question. Is there anything that they can do to hurt the more no-lifer style players that play, 30, 40, 50 hours a week, that doesn't hurt the casual player? That's where I kind of don't know how to respond to a lot of people in chat or the YouTube comments, people that on one hand, during last wipe saying, the game is too easy for the no-lifers, they have too much gear, they have too much stuff. And then now that it's harder for those people to get to level 20, it's harder for those people to access the flea market, they don't have as many people to sell to when they do, it also hurts casual players. That's just kind of how it is, right? There's nothing you can do. It can't be the higher level that you get, the less access you have to something. That's not how video games work. That's not how progression works. So if there's any interesting ideas, I would love to hear them. I'd love to flesh them out. But we have to remember that At the end of the day, if you've got 50 hours a week to play Escape from Tarkov, you should be better than somebody that plays 5 or 10 hours a week. You should have more gear. That's not a game design flaw. That's every video game that's competitive with a progression system ever. You know, I wouldn't just hop into WoW or any other, not to compare it to directly to an RPG like that, to any other video game that has progression and expect to be on the same level as somebody that plays a lot. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have fun. And on the flip side of that, it doesn't mean that every change BSG does is a good one. There are definitely changes that maybe make it really inaccessible to do certain things for more casual players that do need to be changed. This isn't me wholeheartedly defending the move to the level 20 Flea. It's just something that we have to kind of like base our criticism on something. And if you're just coming into people's chats saying rip casuals, this game is broken, this game is trash, BSG only caters to streamers, they only cater to chads, they hate casual players, you're not accomplishing anything. You're probably not going to have a fun time in that person's chat, and that's not based on anything. We need kind of real actionable feedback for these things. Because another thing to remember is that when we look back at the last wipe, most people are just going to look at how the Bitcoin farm, you know, quote unquote, ruined everything and ruined the economy and X, Y, or Z. But we have to remember that there were 100 millionaires. There were players in Escape from Tarkov with over 100 million rubles less than 1 week into last wipe. And that had nothing to do with the Bitcoin farm. When you have the ability to basically grind to level 10, if you're competent at PvP, just grind interchange over and over and over and over and over again, getting CPU fans, bolts, screws, nails, corrugated hoses. And then as soon as the majority of the community gets to level 10, you sell your multiple scav junk boxes worth of those things for hundreds and hundreds of millions of rubles. That isn't necessarily a balanced economy either. And so I'm not saying that the Bitcoin was a good thing. It definitely really shoved everything off a cliff. But we have to remember that there was more to it than just that, and that the economy last wipe, even separate from the flea market, was not what I would say was balanced. So these changes that potentially, you know, hurt the Chad players, they might also hurt the casual players. I think that BSG is once again responding to the community, trying to change things up and see how they pan out. Those are my thoughts on like just the change as a whole, in the sense that like it's done. Let's move forward as a community. Let's play this out. Let's give BSG the data that they want, and let's let our criticism be founded in something real. Now, moving over to how does it actually feel? This is something that I'm still exploring and still uncovering as we play the game. At first, I was very hesitant to think this was a good change, because I was like, all this is going to do is make it, you know, 2 or 3 extra days before somebody hits level 20, you know, the no-lifers hit level 20, and timing it on a level does nothing to help. I'm not sure how I feel yet, but what I can say is the game plays way different. It used to be basically by the time you got to any of the type of quests that you needed, either non-founded raid things or you needed keys for certain quests, by that time you were level 10 and you could buy those keys or those non-founded raid things right off the flea market, those hideout things right off the flea market, and just continue to progress. I have hit a wall where I need a few keys, I need a few things to complete some quests that I can't do because I haven't found the key. And even though I've put like 24 or 25 hours of playtime into the wipe already, I'm level 16 and I can't get the flea market, I can't get those keys. So it's dramatically slowed down that progression from level 10 to level 20, because not only is it a ton of XP, so they made each level require more XP, so that makes it take longer. The difference between level 10 and level 20, like Pestily had a good kind of quote where he was saying basically getting to 20 is like 4 times as long as getting to level 10. So you need a lot more XP to get to 20 than 10. They actually made each level longer, and the progression slows down because part of your progression is questing and getting that XP, which is much harder to do. So I really underestimated how much this was actually slowing down the progression of the game, and how much this level 10 to 20 grind is really interesting, because I'm kind of right in the middle of that. It definitely makes the whole vibe of the game feel different. It makes finding guns or finding gear feel more important. Now, another interesting thing as I've been mulling over this is we have to remember that the richest people in the game made their money off of casual players. You know, the richest people would grind to level 10 on day one, and they would farm up bolts, screws, hideout items, quest items, all sorts of stuff, and they would sit on them until a big part of the community was level 10, and then they would sell them to the casual players for an insane markup. So an interesting thing we're going to see is what items does the player base need by the time they get to level 20, and it's going to be much more of a trickle into level 20. I feel that it's not just going to be like day 3, 50% of the community's at level 10, or like day 7 or whatever it is. It's really going to feel like it's going to trickle in. So I'm interested if those items will be marked up as much, less, or more, if different items will be expensive on the flea market, and if the people that play all the time, if they're struggling to make their hundreds of millions of rubles because there's just not enough people purchasing, or the items that they farmed up don't cost as much. It could be that this is basically just a timed release and the same thing is going to happen in a few weeks, but I really think that this might change how that works and how the economy kind of flows through the mid-wipe kind of area. So it definitely feels different. It definitely makes the game feel different. Like we said earlier, we have to just move forward and play this out over the next few months of the wipe to see how it really changes the game. My encouragement to people that are frustrated with this would be that the flea is not necessarily the end game of the game. It's not like when you unlock the flea, you know, well, I did it. I've done everything. The game is about being in raid. The game is about doing well. And I promise you, if you're struggling, working on map knowledge, working on learning how to play Escape from Tarkov well, learning how to position yourself, learning how to get the drop on enemies, learning how to flank, learning the game is going to net you a much more positive experience, because you're going to be surviving more raids, getting a ton of XP, and gathering wealth slowly that way, as opposed to just grinding out a few barter items, selling them on the flea, going into your raids, dying every raid, losing that gear, grinding out items, selling them on the flea. The gameplay loop shouldn't be centered around the flea market. The gameplay loop should be centered around preparing for a raid, going into a raid, doing well and executing that raid well, extracting from the raid, gathering resources that you need, and selling things that you don't. So speed running is not the spirit of the game. Speed running isn't the answer. I understand why people want to do it. I'm doing it. Like, I get it. And I'm not saying you're playing the game wrong. I'm just saying that if you're struggling, if you're frustrated, working on the fundamentals of the game, in my opinion, are going to net you profit and net you a much more fun experience long term. So those are my thoughts on the flea as it stands a few days into the wipe. I hope that this helped or maybe put some things into perspective for you, and I hope that you are having a blast in this wipe in Escape from Tarkov. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to check out this video. If you like it, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Like we said before, I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. And if you're looking for people to play Tarkov with, our Discord community is an awesome place to be. That link is down below as well. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.